whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone, to this extraordinary episode of Talking Horror as we discuss the 2022 American slasher film Pearl, subtitled An Extraordinary Origin Story, which I didn't realize that. But it is in the trailer that it says that, like, right underneath her name, but it still didn't register to me. So that's the subtitle of that, if anyone wanted to know. So obviously, this is the prequel to the movie X, which, if you haven't listened to our episode on that, pause, go back and listen to that, and then come back and listen to us talk about this movie, Pearl. So Pearl was directed by Ty West again. And I didn't know this. It was co-written by Ty and Mia Goth, which was really cool to have her as an actor be a part of the writing process. And I'm sure we'll kind of discuss that throughout this episode as well. So the movie obviously stars Mia Goth, David Corenswit, Tandy Wright, Matthew Sunderland, and Emma Jenkins Purro. And this is, again, the prequel to the movie X and the second installment in this 3-movie Ty West trilogy chain. So we're super excited. After this, it's Maxine. And I'm sure we'll cover that as well. Because I just have to say, I think it is a very genius idea to have this already be a trilogy moment that might even be all coming out in the same year. Do we know if Maxine is coming out this year?
Unsure. I would love producer Brian here. I would.
Yes.
We've only had that short little teaser that played at the end of the movie, as well as you can get it online. But like, it just says coming soon or whatever it is. I would love to get it this year. What a fun thing to get a full trilogy in one year. But even if it's early next year, like, I'm totally fine because this is the trilogy I did not know I needed, and I'm obsessed with it.
Absolutely. I agree. So before we get into everything that is Pearl and probably some about X as well, there's going to be heavy spoilers. I'm just going to go ahead and say it for both movies,
Yeah.
X and Pearl, because I'm sure we'll be comparing and going through the through line of the story. And producer Brian, any other things you would like to say to us before we dive in?
Yeah, we're on YouTube too, so find us on YouTube. Hi everyone, if you can see us, hi. Yeah, we're just putting these on YouTube as well. Jamie was tickling you.
She looks like a ghost.
She also looks like a ghost.
Yeah, totally intentional. Very
Yeah.
on purpose.
But yeah, we are putting those there, and then you can follow us on social media at Talk Horror Pod. We're having a lot of fun on TikTok, and then we also have stuff on Instagram as well as Twitter. So follow us there, and then find us wherever our podcast is. Subscribe if this is your first time listening to us. Please subscribe. We would really appreciate it. And let's go back to you, Nikisha.
Cute. Well, I'm going to kick it over to Jamie because tell us about those trigger warnings. I'm sure there's a lot.
Yes, this is a gooey movie. Actually, wait,
Gooey!
before I say
love
that, did you know for Maxine there's an online open casting call for people
Wait a
to be
minute.
extras?
Hold
And
up.
the rules, yes, this is real. The rules say that you have to reenact the final standoff between Pearl and Maxine, both played by Mia Goth in X. You can submit your audition videos on TikTok, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag #XCastingCall. And the deadline is September 28th at midnight.
Done and done a million times over. Wait, but my question is, if you're recreating the thing, like, is it just you recreating these two fight scenes between these people, or I gotta find somebody else?
Perhaps that is it. So
I guess maybe that is the point because Mia Goth is playing both of these.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it to win it. Let's do it.
I love it.
That'd be fantastic.
So yeah, I was like, oh, I need to mention this. But back to this gooey movie.
Yes.
Yes, there is some slashing. There are some insides on the outside. There are some images of people who have already been murdered and are decomposing. There's some decomposing animal bits as well. There are sexual references. I think that's most of it. Just mostly stabbing still.
Yes, and axe
Stabbing,
chopping limbs.
pitchforks, chopping limbs,
Ooh,
heads eaten by
yes.
alligators.
Jeez, it's a lot, which we're gonna get all into. But first, I want to ask you guys: have you watched anything this week? Tell me about that.
We've watched a lot of stuff this week, and I was gonna
Nice.
Mhm.
say Pearl, but we already knew that. um,
Yes.
so
Uh,
we watched. So one non-horror thing that we watched that we really liked was Top Gun Maverick.
Oh, nice.
That was really good.
Okay.
mhm.
I guess we watch a lot of sequels on here. This is a prequel, but like we watch a lot of sequels, and that was like one of the better sequels I've ever seen.
Really? Well, I
Yeah,
heard good reviews about
yeah.
that movie. Yeah.
But spooky wise, Jamie and I watched uh, Gonjiam Haunted Asylum.
Never heard of it.
It is
Ooh, if
a
you like found footage and spooky places,
Mm-hmm.
this was a really good one. It was recommended a whole bunch by people on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
TikTok coming through.
it was awesome. We have a couple more to watch that were suggested on TikTok. Like apparently people really love Grave Encounters, which I've never seen. So
Mhm.
that's next on our list that way. Also Butterfly Kisses, we've never seen, but it's supposed to be awesome. And then we also watched Do Revenge.
Oh, is that Netflix?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it
is
was
really good.
amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's
Mhm.
starring
Maya
what's her name from?
Maya
Yes.
Hawk.
Maya Hawk.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh,
It was
okay.
spectacular. It was
Mhm.
really great. I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, like
Nice.
the teen raunchy, not raunchy, the teen, revenge flick I didn't know I needed.
Yeah. Okay. I'll
Yeah,
put that on my list for
yeah.
sure.
It's really good. It does not follow this. Basically, it doesn't follow the same like formula that those movies are.
Mm-hmm.
So that you feel like you're getting one thing and you get something else, and it's so good. The acting is great. I feel like it really does an amazing job of showing female relationships in high school to a heightened extent. Obviously,
Mhm.
Yeah.
the acting and writing, it's just like it's such a
And
banger.
a
I
great
love it.
cameo.
Oh yeah, an excellent cameo in
Ooh.
it for sure.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and then maybe most importantly on Shudder, we've been watching the 100 scariest movie moments. Uh,
Oh, that sounds fun.
the first two
Mhm.
episodes were out, and yeah, we're putting a lot of new stuff on our to watch list. We're arguing. We're like that should not be this low, or that should not be on the list at all, or that should be not high, or this is
Yeah.
this is only on the list because the movie is good. This is not actually a scary scene from that movie. Like
Mm,
we're really digging it.
Yeah. If
I
you like
love
that
that.
Bravo's scariest movie moments from back in the late, I don't know, early 2000s, maybe. I forget when it was airing, but
Hmm.
it's like the same exact vibe.
Oh, I love
Interviews
it.
from, people in the biz, critics, all that stuff. It's got that same energy.
Okay. Well, listen, I love a Watch Mojo top 10
Oh,
countdown
Mhm.
Nikisha,
moment.
you're
So,
gonna be you're gonna love it. This was made for you.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Oh, wasn't there another like documentary series we started on Shudder?
Oh yeah, we started watching cursed films.
Mm.
Mm,
So it basically takes like movies that are supposedly quote cursed and like it
mm-hmm.
does like a 20 to 30 minute little mini documentary on them. Each episode is a different movie. We've been flipping around from season 1 to season 2, but we
Yeah.
watched Poltergeist and we
Nice.
Cannibal
uh
Holocaust.
right, I've already scrubbed it from my brain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
Mhm.
Okay. I need to get a Shutter subscription, or we need to figure out a way for them to sponsor talking horror. So
Hey, Shutter.
Hey,
hey,
Shudder.
sponsor us, give us
Shudder,
subscriptions,
sponsor
and we'll
us.
cover all your stuff. Because there's some really great stuff that's actually dropped recently, and then VHS 99, which we will be covering on this podcast
Mm-hmm.
because I
Yeah.
love those movies. Is on Shudder as well, so we like Shudder. This is non-sponsored, but we'd like it to be. Shudder, 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 Shudder.
Shutter, please. Fantastic. Well, speaking of streaming services in general, so on Netflix, I know I'm late to the game, but I started watching the show You.
Mm.
And every time I tell anyone that, oh, yeah, I started this, everyone's like, why have you not watched this? It seems like this would be something that you would absolutely watch. Well, I am on the struggle bus. It's one of those train wrecks you can't stop watching, but you
Sure.
just know that everyone in that show is just terrible. Everyone is making poor choices. It's you want all of the slimy, creepy people to get caught, and it's a mind fight of who am I rooting for in this? Who am I supposed to be hoping succeeds in this, because it's just so much chaos that is happening. But again, I can't stop watching it, and so I will continue on. Mostly also because our favorite girl, which I can't remember her real name, who is in all of the Haunting of Bly Manor,
Oh.
and yeah, she ends
Mm-hmm.
up in one of the seasons after season 1. So I'm just waiting for her appearance in all of this.
Mm.
Uh, but it is gruesome, and I don't know how to feel about it, but I'm gonna keep watching it. So we'll see what
We
happens.
we have not watched it,
Okay,
so we're even behind you. So that should make
it's
you
a
feel
hard
better.
watch. Okay, I
Yeah.
feel a little bit
It's
better.
Victoria Pedretti. I just wanted to look
Yes,
up her name.
thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm just waiting for her to come. But if you guys decide to watch it, let me know. I can tell
Yeah.
you that it's better than 50 Shades.
Okay. That's
That's not hard.
not a hard
Right.
bar. But also, like, I don't know, and correct me, shows like that don't interest me
Mm.
because it feels like a 13 Reasons Why. It not
And I've
not
never
Never
seen that.
watched that.
yeah, like I have no interest in glorifying these horrible things.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
it's
mean? I
hard.
guess, and we could talk about Pearl, but like I mean, I just don't like the idea of teen suicide and like turning into a mystery and like glorifying it over the course of a couple of seasons, and then the you kind of it's more like it's like stalker stuff and like toxic
Yes.
relationship stuff, right?
Yeah, it is. And it makes you feel, I can absolutely see women or anyone who is attracted to men watching this and thinking, "Oh my gosh, I would love to have somebody who loved me that much to stalk and kill for me." I mean, that's the vibe that it's giving out of. This is the relationship that you want to be in. Someone who is with you so much that they would do all of this stuff for you. And it's so toxic, and you're right, Brian. It's glorifying something that's really, really messed up.
I I also just want to say that I am not on some high horse. I watch shit like that all the fucking time.
Yeah.
Those two, for some reason, fall into my high, like hypocrite like web. You
Your
know what I
moral
mean?
high, like that's too
Yeah,
much.
I'm just like it doesn't interest me. Meanwhile, here I am like watching like I don't know all the Twilight movies, enjoying the hell out of them, but recognizing like that it's not saying anything more and it's just like it is what it is.
Hmm.
I guess as a human I can delineate between like this is
Right.
commentary and saying something about it and being critical of it, whereas like this thing is just like using it to its own advantage to like hook you in, and like that's perfectly
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. It's so random, but I'll keep you posted. I'm sure it's probably going to be the same thing all the way through, but
Yes, we want your regular you updates here
oh
on
my
Talking Horror.
gosh. It's just again, I can't stop watching it. Anyway, so let's get into Pearl, because there's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of for us to discuss, especially in that moral high ground moment. Well, with that, we need to give a 2-minute plot summary of Pearl. So it might be my turn. I think
Yeah.
I'll volunteer as tribute.
Okay.
So
Okay.
kind of you.
What's the plot.
All right. Are you ready? 2 minutes on the clock. I want you to tell me all about Pearl. Go.
So it's set in what 1918, and so there's a war happening. There's the Spanish flu happening, and it was really weird seeing those people with masks and talking about not getting the germ. Eek. So we have Pearl. She wants to be famous. Mostly, she wants to be a dancer, but she lives on a farm with her mom and her dad, who she has to take care of because there is he got the Spanish flu. I don't know. I wasn't sure about what his illness was, but anyway, he needs to be taken care of. So she can't do things that she wants to do. Her mom gives her money to go get her dad medicine. And so she goes to the movies while she gets the medicine. And it kind of fuels her need to want to get off the farm and be a dancer, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So eventually her mother finds out there's a really crazy dinner scene where her mother is saying, I see the evil inside of you. You need to chill out. And she is saying, I'm going to be a star. I'm going to go audition for this dancer troupe. And so her and her mother get into an argument, and somehow her mother catches on fire because she pushes her into the fireplace, and she throws her down the stairs. Okay, that's that. And then she leaves her dad. She runs and finds this guy that she wants to hook up with who works at the movie theater. That happens. The next day she goes and she auditions for the thing. She doesn't get it, but her friend does. She comes back home. I think before that happens, though, she ends up killing the guy that she hooked up with. It was really crazy and random. And then she ends up killing her parents as well. All that to say, I forgot that she's also married and her husband is in the war. And so her friend gets the dance part that she wants. She kills her friend. She kills her parents, and then she puts her parents at the dinner table and lets them sit there and rot. I don't know what that reasoning was. And then her husband comes back home to see all the craziness that has happened, and she's just saying, "Welcome home, honey." And then she starts crying in the camera for 2 minutes, and that's Pearl.
That is Pearl.
And that's the plot.
That is Pearl.
That is Pearl. It's a lot and not a lot all at the same time. So let's get into it. Our likes and gripes of this movie.
And now our likes and gripes.
Jamie, do you want to start?
Sure. I love this movie. It was so good. I had no idea what to expect. Again, look at me not reading the plot before I see the movie.
Yay! So good.
How exciting. But yeah, I had no idea what to expect. I was very pleasantly surprised just to see like Mia Goth. A huge like is just Mia Goth. Mia Goth is like the new contemporary screen queen. Like, give
Mhm.
all of the attention, give her all of the jobs. She's excellent. And like also like this story is really good. It's exciting to know that she collaborated with Ty West and like they came up with a really solid backstory origin for Pearl, and like, I still want more. I like can't stop thinking about just like her as a character, and like I
Mhm.
just want to know more about all of the treachery and murders that she gets into between now and when X takes place. So it's so interesting that they've been able to create such a compelling, interesting character that I am like, so like not infatuated with, because obviously she's, got a little got a little
Got a little
something
something
going on.
happening.
But yeah, it's like just her in this like her in her prime, ready to take on the world, but being held back by like, these life expectations that are both being put on her explicitly by her mom, but also because her husband leaves her and is serving in World War One.
Mhm.
And like it's just like this intersection of all of these things combined that kind of incite all of this violence. But yeah, I love Mia Goth is like my ultimate like in this movie. I don't really, I mean, I didn't have a lot of gripes because I had no expectations, I think, going into it.
Mhm.
I It's not like the scariest movie, but I don't really think I needed it to be, at least like within the context of this trilogy that we're getting.
Mhm.
Because like X is pretty scary enough. And like that's not what I think they were setting out to do, and I connected with that, so I wasn't, mad that there wasn't more gore, but, like, the gore we get is, like, pretty ruthless and
Hmm.
disturbing and, like, disgusting, um, so, like, I'm satisfied with, the ick that we get from Pearl, um, but it is interesting. I don't know. I'm thinking like I don't really have a gripe, but there was more stuff I think with like the projectionist character that I kind of wish we got that like
Mm.
planted because like there's something like Pearl's the scene where she like goes and finds the scarecrow and is like fantasizing with the scarecrow and then like
Hmm.
starts like having sex or like simulating sex with the scarecrow and then like she does have sex with the projectionist who I think she's imagining
Right, right.
when she's doing that dancing scene. But like I don't know, there's something about him showing her the pornography for the first time and then
Mm.
connecting back to X that I like am very curious about because again, like in X, they're, Mia Goth is playing Pearl and Maxine, and they're both like kind of connected with one another. But it's not just because they're playing the same person. It's also just because of like they both want the same thing. They're just in
Hmm.
two different places in their life. But like there's something about the pornography that I feel like also brings this like bridges this gap between them. Um
Right.
so I guess what I'm saying is I just want more.
More of that
My gripe
connection.
is that like I want more of Pearl. I could watch like a 10 movie like, expand the trilogy, give me more Pearl.
Yes.
That's these are my demands and I
Yes.
I need you to give this to me. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Of course, Mia Goth is everything, but I really want to comment on how much I enjoyed how this movie was filmed, with all of the old timey vintage shots and the orchestration. Because when the opening scene happens, and I already put my first note was I'm already invested with the old timey opening because you have this glorious orchestration that's happening and it feels like you're in a 1930s 40s glamour movie, and all these people, what Vera Ellen is going to just come out and start doing a dance number or whatever, like that's the feel of it, and I love movies like that in general, so this was just top tier for me. It also just adds to the juxtaposition of knowing that something wrong is happening and in the atmosphere and bad things are going to happen, but it's just with overlaid with this beautiful orchestration that I can go on for days about. uh and which I put the orchestration is stellar. And I will say my only gripe that I had is that at the tiniest bit of times it felt a little bit slow. I remember just like looking at my watch and saying, "Oh my gosh, it's it's been an hour." And I feel like it's been a little bit longer than that, but it only felt that way for a second. And like Jamie mentioned, the gruesome nature of everything. I said, this is not very, I want the deaths to be a little bit more gruesome. And then the end happens. And I said, okay, never mind. I got what I needed from from this. It's fine. One of my favorite lines was, I feel things very deeply, because if that's not a cancer, I don't know what is. That was
I thought the same thing.
exactly fellow cancer, you get it. So I was like, oh God, why am I identifying with this? It's so much. Um, I definitely loved, again, with the filming aspect of it. I don't know what kind of shot that is, but it's with like the little ring into the blackouts. I'm doing it with my hands. You can't see it on if you're just listening, but
Oh, you
if you
mean
see the
like
movie,
the
you know
the
what I'm talking about.
transitions?
Yeah, just like closing out with like the circle into
Yeah.
a blackout.
Mhm.
I
The
love
Looney
that.
Tunes transition is what I think you mean.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. The Looney Tunes transition. I love it. Again, I said the filming of this is incredible. Oh, another one of my favorite lines was when her friend asked, "How come you're not scared?" And she said, "I guess I'm just used to the feeling." And how messed up is that? Also, Mia Goth needs an Oscar for these roles. Um, and again, the three picture idea is genius on Ty West's part. I just looking at my notes. Oh yeah, and when I put never mind, this is really gruesome. Oh, and then the end when she's smiling at the camera and then starts crying for 10 minutes. I lost my mind. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. She is the greatest actress. This is wonderful. Just to have the camera on you for that long to where everyone feels awkward in the audience and she is just still living in that moment. You don't She has so much going on in her brain and just the slow smiling to the crying was just brilliant and genius. And this movie in general, it's very disturbing, but in a way that is weirdly satisfying because how everything plays out.
Yeah.
Uh it's yeah, I would say it's not so much scary as it was just very disturbing. And I felt kind of on the edge of my seat the whole time because I felt so just yucky and icky from everything that was happening. But how everything played out, it was just very satisfying. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Brian?
Yeah, I really loved this movie too. I just didn't know what to expect, and I
Mm,
loved what we got. I echo everything you've both said. So I want to get more specific about what Nikisha said. The juxtaposition of like this 1939 Wizard of Oz type movie, where you have the orchestrations, you have the title sequences, and things like
mhm.
that. Because you have the blue dress that reminds you of Dorothy. You
Yes.
have the scarecrow, obviously, the cornfields. You have this concept of like wanting to break free and go into a world that is not like your own, like the movies. All of that stuff is just like, I mean, and the way she rides her bike is like Elmira Gulch, when before she becomes, the Wicked Witch of the West in her dreams or reality, or however you want to define the Wizard of Oz. But like, this was like clearly pulling from that, and I was absolutely here for it. And then, like Nikisha said, the juxtaposition of that versus what was actually happening was fantastic. I like the porn introduction here, just so that you got a little taste of that. It kind of like, as just like a constant through these. Her screams were incredible in these, and
Mm.
when she's sobbing after she doesn't get the role at the end is just like, it
Gut
was
wrenching.
very unsettling. Um, I loved the concept of the background of the pandemic and the World War I, but specifically about the fact that our family are immigrants from Germany. So it's even more pressure for them because they are German immigrants during World War I. People want nothing to do with them
Mm.
because of the nature of who we're fighting in World War I. So that was absolutely like, it's a way to like add so much more tension than what's actually happening in the storyline, and I absolutely felt it. um uh the kills were more effective for me with a slow burn at the end. I think I was more invested in like what was happening to Pearl and her decision making in those moments. Um i I a love of this movie is those little cut shots of her imagining what it would be like when her husband came home. So you have the two complete opposite ends of the spectrum. On one side, you have her imagining him coming home, like coming around the barn. It's windy out. She's with the clothespins putting out the clothes on the lines, and she turns around and
Mhm.
he's there, and it's this movie moment where like, oh, the boy is home from the war. Then you have when she's crushing the crocodile egg, the alligator egg. On the other side of the spectrum, he explodes. The total opposite end of the spectrum. That's just like so wild, your imagination crazy. And then and then during my biggest like of this movie is her monologue at the end.
Mm.
You have her talking about those things. The movie doesn't explicitly say what she's feeling until those last moments. They're showing you everything. And then she finally says what it is. And she falls somewhere right in between being so happy and loving him and just being so fucking mad at him. And it's
Mhm.
and I think that is just so well laid out in this movie. and I think what I like the most about this movie is it is an X prequel without explicitly being an X prequel, in that
Yes.
I feel the connection aside, but let's even pretend Mia Goth didn't play both of them. I feel the connections between the character of Pearl and the character of Maxine, because here Pearl is with the weight of the world on her, her parents holding her back. Her dad got the flu, got the, and so therefore he was, incapacitated. She has to take care of them. The expectations of her mother, her family holding her back for what she actually wants to do, show business, is what makes her turn. It is what makes her, have these immense feelings and have to take action on it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Maxine, who, if you remember from the TV, her father was the preacher. So we could make the assumption that, like, she's doing something to break away from how she grew up in this very religious, potentially dangerous religious, misogynist religious household. I'm making assumptions based on the type of preacher he was, on the TV that was in the background that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So she is breaking through and she wants to do this. And I feel like she and Pearl are like two peas in a pod, because they're kind of going through the same thing, just making different decisions. And one is taking, again, one is taking like a less traveled road, let's say, with the porn industry.
Mm-hmm.
And to make that happen. So this gets me very excited for Maxine. Is Maxine just going to be about, Maxine like using the power of like Pearl and her, and power meaning like who she is, who this character is, and how it's kind of like transferred. And spoiler alert, Maxine kills Pearl in X. So like
Right.
you wonder like how she's gonna carry like all of that with her. Is this going to be a slasher type? Is this gonna be just like a dirty porn industry thing? Like, is this going to be like Pearl and Maxine finally get their big break? And by Pearl, I'm tying Pearl's hopes and dreams to Maxine at this point.
Of
So
course.
like
Yeah.
I just think the flow of this, I'm just getting goosebumps thinking about this. It's just so brilliant. It's so heady. It's so visceral. It's so wonderful. And never in a million years that I think Pearl was making the wrong decision for Pearl. She was making the wrong decisions because, like, you don't murder people, but also like
Of course.
I fundamentally, just want to let you all know, I think that Pearl made the right decisions for Pearl. I do not condone murder.
Exactly.
Well, I just thought that all of her murders were completely justified for her point of view, and the movie goes out of its way, or maybe not out of its way, because that's the point of the movie, to show why she would make these decisions based on what her wants and what her needs are. And it just like totally knocked it out of the park and blew it away for me. And I cannot wait for Maxine.
Yes. I do want to tack on to that, just because I'm thinking about when she murdered her friend, because you think
Her
for a little
sister-in-law.
bit, yeah, her sister-in-laws,
Oh,
yes.
oh, oh.
Yes, and you think, for a second, it's just so weird that you say that, because for me in that scene, I was just thinking, as the sister-in-law, what would I do to make Pearl not kill me? Because obviously, like, Pearl spilled all of the things that she has done, and so obviously the sister-in-law can't live because she knows that Pearl's murdered all of these people. So instead of me thinking, "Oh, Pearl, don't murder your sister-in-law," I'm thinking, "Sister-in-law, okay, what can we do to make sure that Pearl, we can fool Pearl into thinking, she's okay. We're not afraid of her. What can we do?" And I think that just speaks on what you were talking about, Brian, in general, of justifying Pearl's actions because of the goals that she has. And you just go along with it as an audience member, even though the decisions are not the decisions that we would make,
Sure.
but we can justify it by her life and what she's trying to do in her goals. So it's
Can
just so
I
good. Yes.
Can I ask you two a question? Jamie and I already talked about this, but you said this
Hmm.
in your plot summary. And here's a question I have that I still don't know the answer to, although I do subscribe to one side of it.
Okay.
When Pearl, at the end of the movie, when Pearl asks her sister in law, did she get it? She first answers, no, I didn't get it. And then she changes her answer to, I did get it. Um,
Yeah.
Nikisha, I think you said it. It's clear, but I want to clarify. Do you think that her sister-in-law actually got the part?
How they set it up, I think that she did get the part only because they were saying we're looking for somebody who's blonde and younger and all that stuff. And so and, it's hard because how this actor played that role was brilliant in the sense of no, I didn't get it, but should because of what's happening, should I just say yes and not fight with her? Because maybe if I start this confrontation with her, that might be what initiates Pearl to do something drastic. All that to say, I think that she did end up getting the part. Do y'all think so or no?
I agree with you. I think she did get the part.
Okay, Brian.
I I d- there's when I watched the movie and they had mentioned that the blonde haired person was there with what they were looking for, like you mentioned, Nikisha.
Mhm,
The actress in that moment convinced me that she did not get it. And she was
mhm.
so relieved that she did not get it at the beginning of that conversation. So that she could tell Pearl, like, oh no, I didn't get it. Like, we're the same. Like that.
Yeah.
And then
Mhm.
she devolves into, oh, I did get it because that's what Pearl wants to hear. Like,
Right.
so that's where I stand. Even though you don't agree, Nikisha, you explained it the best way possible in terms of like what that actress and that character was going through. So
Yeah.
I subscribe to that. Obviously, the answer is it doesn't matter because either answer, Pearl was going to kill her. Um,
Right.
but like I think she didn't get it and is was killed because she was trying to bargain with someone who could not be bargained with in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I could subscribe either way. Like if Ty West came out and said, yes, she did or yes, she didn't, it makes sense either way based again on how the actress was playing it or how it was written. Because like you said, Brian, either way she was gonna be dead. So it's wild and crazy kids over here.
Yeah,
Uh
but I have more questions for you too.
yes, yes, yes.
Two things. I guess this is one big question, but I want to hear your narrative creations. What happens next? Like, what do you think happens next? So we get the 2 minute incredible performance over the credits with her husband coming home. We know from X that she
Hmm.
loves him so much he would do anything for her. Like we know that they get to a really good and he's kind of like along for the ride in terms of the terrible things that she's doing in X. What what do you think happens in between this and X? I'd love to hear your just like high level narrative.
Yeah, Jamie, you want to start?
I mean, I have no idea. I feel like part of like part of their relationship is like she's so upset that he abandoned her and then all of this stuff happens. I can see a world where he's like doing these things with her to make up for the fact that he left and
Mm,
like that, even though these things happened while he wasn't here, I don't know if he feels any like guilt or remorse for the things she did. Like I could see if I was here, then none of this would have happened. But then
mhm,
also, in X, we get him being complicit in these things. So like at what point does it then become like, well, I am along for the ride. Like I'll do whatever you want because I love you so much, or I'll do whatever you want because like I'm so guilty for having left you that
mhm.
time. Like anything connected to that, that's kind of what I feel like. But I am like that's what I'm super curious about. Not just like all of Pearl's exploits, but like when does he get bought into it?
Mhm.
What does he even think about it? Because I mean, maybe we're to assume I don't really know. We get very little of him in this. We get nothing of him in this. So like is he similar to her, or does he just love her so much that it doesn't matter?
Yeah, that's a good point too because at the end of the day, she also killed his sister. So
Yeah.
how do you say okay, it's fine, which makes me kind of think that mm, maybe he was a little bit afraid of her. I think it could be a combination of things because I agree with you, Jamie, of the, oh, I feel guilty for leaving and this is the love of my life, so I will subscribe to whatever you're about. Especially if she's
Mhm.
open and honest about how, because it seems by the time you get to X, she's very open and honest about her murderous nature and how she reacts to things and all that stuff. But I also just think that he might just be a little bit afraid of her. And also during that time period, what was he going to do? They have a whole house now to themselves that they don't have to worry about her parents or any of that kind of paperwork, like would he just turn her in and then she goes to jail? And then what happens to him? I mean, he just came back from a war. Why would he want to create confrontation in his home base when he just came from something that was so tragic and he survived it? So it also might just be, okay, what's the best way for me to survive this and be happy with this situation? Uh, because what would be the alternative? Lose the person that you love, and then what do you do? So I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. What about you, Brian?
Okay. I agree with both of you. I think he comes. This is again. I'm making this up,
Mhm.
obviously, because this movie doesn't exist.
Hmm.
So I think what happens is he comes back from the war. He has to be on her side because she killed his sister. So like you'd think that like he goes one of two ways. He gets freaked out and he runs and he tells the police and like all of this stuff, or he stays and tries to fix things. And I'm sure one you can it's very during that time I would assume it's very easy to say that like the older people died of the flu and you just like
Yeah.
bury them on the land. That's fine. The sister, you could say she ran away to join the circus or like she or whatever, like you or even flu. You can just bury the three of them in the backyard and say like they got the flu, we're quarantining here or something like that. I don't know.
Hmm.
I feel like there are ways to like fake it and get around it. I think that I agree. I think there's some guilt that he probably thinks that it was his fault because he left. I think that he probably has severe PTSD or shell shock from the trenches in World War I, and I'm wondering if like going along with like her murderous ways, or you have one way he helps to murder and whatnot, and like they're probably like banging a lot over the course of these years, and like
Hmm.
because like part of the reason that she goes on this murderous rage in X is because she can no longer have sex with her husband because it would kill him. So I'm wondering if like they have all these years of just like wild erotic experiences with each other that like help to keep the two of them in line. Him with his like wild shell shock who like loves the hell out of his wife, and her with these like aggressively pent up feelings of being left behind, which she always obviously still have. Like I can imagine that kind of being a scenario there, because it seems that Pearl has had these tendencies forever, regardless. And this might lead us
Hmm.
into brains, but like she has these like pent up things, and it just feels like we're seeing this movie because this is why this movie takes place at this point in time, because this is when she snaps with all the
Yes.
things that are pent up previously. And only exacerbated by her husband being away, her being German in America during World War I, and her having to take care of her parents, all of this during a pandemic. So like, and being trapped at home, because there's that amazing scene where they bring the pig to them,
Yeah.
and she's like, we don't need any help, like stop being helpful. Like she also talks about how like they're never out of the house, like they've been cooped up here forever, like. So and then I think that's how you get to X. I'm wondering if porn ever comes back into Pearl's life, or she's triggered by them making it because it reminds her of like one of the biggest mistakes that she did, of like
Mm.
disrespecting her husband in a sexual way and like emotionally connecting with someone else. I don't know. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in there, but the end of this movie reminded me of Ready or Not a little bit, where it's like
Yeah.
how you gonna get out of this situation? like like no one's gonna, like, doesn't matter what
Covered in
anyway.
blood.
Yeah. And so that's I could see that, and her just like going to the movies all the time and just
Yeah.
like something like that. Anyway, back to you, Nikisha.
So what you're saying is you're going to make the sequel to Pearl
Yeah.
that's so we can answer all of these questions.
Yeah, it will be
Right
Thanks,
called
Brian.
Pearl 2, Pearly McGurley. No, Pearl 2,
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Pearl.
Electric Boogaloo, yes. We like it. We stand for it. Beautiful. Well, yeah, let's just go ahead and go into brains.
Brains.
And the first thing that I want to talk about, which is piggies back off of Brian's last statement of everything that was going on in her brain and why she was doing the things that she was doing. And it makes me question, because her mother mentions that she has a lot of evil that's inside of her that she has known for a long time and was just trying to really kind of suppress that. And having a war and a pandemic just kind of helped with that, because now you can't leave the house and you can't go and, have any other kind of influences in your life that might feed into that evil nature. So we do a thing here on Talking Horror of, is it a Billy or Stew?
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Yeah, it's a scream, baby.
Billy or Stew.
And that's mostly when we're talking about psychopath versus sociopath. But I think that, and I'm asking you, Jamie, this is the first question. Do you think it's Pearl falls into one of those categories, or do you think that it's something different? To me, it seems like in our talks, which I am not licensed in anything, but in our talks and discussions, it feels like she doesn't really fit clean into either one of those categories. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, I also do I say with the caveat that like do people very neatly fall into any of these categories?
Very
I
true.
would say no.
Yeah.
And so I think that, with the DSM and diagnosing people, like take it all with a grain of salt. It's for some people, they, really are looking for some kind of label to better understand what they're experiencing. Cause that also for some people helps them see that there are solutions to what they're experiencing. Now that I know what it is, I know that I can deal with it.
Right.
But for other people, that's not the case. And again, I don't think people like fit neatly into boxes. But for fantasy and fun, I kind of do think that Pearl falls more into a stew
Okay.
from Scream. And I think this because I don't think that Pearl, at least at this point, is very in some ways is not very in control of her emotions. Like she says that she feels things super deeply. I think that she you know, has these very intense emotions and does not feel like she has any control over them and then things just happen. And I think that a lot of the circumstances are not well planned out. They're crimes of extreme anger or passion, passion, but not like romantic passion. It's just
Right.
intense feeling. So I do think that she kind of falls more in that sociopath bucket of, she's not in control of her emotions. She's just reacting to things and is not thinking through these plans at all. Maybe you could say that she thought a little bit more about killing her father because that's the person that she feels like is the one thing holding her back from pursuing this dream.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for her father who's infirmed, that she would, just leave. And so that we see it when she takes him down to the waterfront where the crocodile is. And it's oh, is she gonna serve her dad to this crocodile?
Right.
And then gets caught by the mom. And so that plan is derailed. But then later on, after she already has this tussle with her mom and her mom is dying, she decides that that's the moment that she is going to kill her father. And then she goes back later and in her monologue, she references it and says she regrets it and regrets doing that in that way. So I really think that she's, I don't know if she necessarily has total remorse, maybe some, but not a lot. I mean, I think that there's a degree of empathy that is lost when you are okay with committing murder.
Yes,
So
for sure, for
she
sure.
can regret her actions, but I think it's also more about herself and not about like, having just murdered her father or
Right.
her mother or her sister-in-law, like any of these people. I think it's just like her feeling badly that that's the way it went, but like, how does this then impact her?
Right. No, that makes absolute sense. And in regards to her being so young and taking care of her parents, can you just talk about the impact or influence it can have on a child's life when you have adult responsibilities put on to you at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just responsibilities, but like, there's something to like parentification and
Mm,
like putting, more adult things on young people and like how that can sometimes cause harm. And maybe it's not looking exactly the same as what's happening here, but like I do think that, at least for her very limited ability to like go out and live her life. Although we don't really know how old Pearl is at this
technically,
point.
yeah.
Like she's a young adult because I'm assuming because she's married, but like definitely on the younger end of things.
Now this time we can actually figure it out because she's not pretending to be another age.
Oh
Um,
my gosh, yes.
so let's do the
Uh,
math. Okay, so what? She got married. Give her benefit of the doubt. She got married at like 17,
16. Yeah.
16.
Hmm.
So we have like, so this place at 1918. So 1920, 1930, hold on. Oh wow. I can't believe this is being recorded. I forgot.
math is hard.
Yeah.
Math is
So
really
like,
hard.
so you have, so 1918 to 1920 is 10 years. Excuse me. 1928, 38,
Yes.
48, 58, 68, and then 70. So that's 60 years after this. So ish.
Mm, yeah.
So if she's maybe she's 20ish, which makes her 80ish
In
in
X.
X.
Yeah.
Yes?
How is she
No?
so strong in X? I still don't understand it. How is she doing all of these murders? This 80-year-old woman is impaling people. Like, I don't
Oh.
get it. That one stabbing scene will
Yes.
still be my gripe, even though I still really enjoy the movie. I'm just like, how is this woman so strong?
So strong.
So strong. She's
Yeah,
got
she's
those
doing
she's got
Pilates.
she's got those farm muscles. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's it. Yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah.
80 years old and she's got those farm muscles, you know?
Listen, she was wielding that axe in
Mm.
Pearl, so
Yeah,
she was ready.
if we lived in the 1918 or whatever it is and worked on a farm, we'd all have way better cardio and upper body strength. Nikisha like boxes, so like she has it,
Yes.
but like I podcast. I don't cut wood.
Yeah, you should pivot to another TikTok channel where you just start chopping wood.
Yeah,
Oh God.
yeah.
Yes.
And then one day, like Captain America, I'll be able to like rip it.
Right.
All right. Anyway,
Mhm.
back to
Oh my gosh.
brains.
Yes. That was great. Just the lumberjack TikTok, I can't even with that because
Yeah, it'll be
it's good stuff there, people.
at
Okay.
at
Uh,
lumberjacked.
Oh God.
That's good.
Jack talk.
Thank you,
Lumber
Jack
talk.
Talk.
Uh
Lumber talk.
Lumber
lumber
Talk. All right. Back to you. Sorry.
talk. Beautiful. Yeah, so you just talking about the influences of uh like how does that impact you when you become an adult, having all of those childlike responsibilities? I think you started talking about it and then we got veered off.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of it's like, I think again, context is super key, but
Hmm.
the like what I'm thinking about is like, some people who feel like they lost out on those like youth experiences, those experiences
Hmm.
that like people get in childhood. Is there then like not infantilizing of themselves, but, going back in some ways to some of those experiences that they did not have
Mhm.
because they never had access to them. And it's like making up for lost time. And, is that always the healthiest? Or I mean, like, who am I to judge? But like, is it always like helpful to kind of like feel like regressing in some ways?
Yeah, that reminds
Maybe
me. I
not.
mean, you even talking about that reminds me of Michael Jackson and all of the things that
Mm.
he said that he missed out on as a kid. And so as adults, we're looking at him and the things that he chooses to put into his life or put on his land that are very childlike things, amusement parks and stuff. But he also says it's because he didn't get to do all those things when he was a kid, and that was just kind of, it seems like a way of, like you said, coping with that. And is that the healthiest? Maybe not, but what do you think would be a better way to kind of cope with those feelings? Because they don't go away, but if you can't buy yourself an amusement park, like, what can you do? you know to feel those
Yeah.
experiences but not actually regressing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the answer is always just like therapy, duh.
Duh.
Um
I mean, that's an excellent answer.
Yes, everyone
Like,
needs
yeah.
therapy.
Okay, great.
Therapy.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think like there is something to like having to process some of these things. Like there are people who are revisiting those past experiences in therapy all the time. So I think that there's something to like, can you like you can't change the past, but what can you do at least in the present so that the future is more aligned with like the way that you want it to be?
Hmm.
And how do you like move closer towards that future that's like in line with your goals and your values? Are you
Yeah.
holding anything from the past that's like continuing to have an impact on you? If it is like experiences from childhood, experiences like with your parents, those
Hmm.
things, like, the past definitely informs our present, but how much is it controlling our present and our future?
Absolutely. And don't do the thing of, when you do get older and you have lost experiences, don't put that on your kids, guys.
Yep. Yep,
Because
yep, yep, yep,
we
yep,
kind of
yep.
see that too with this, and the mother kind of explaining some of the things that she wanted to do, and it wasn't um as like, oh, I didn't do this so you're going to do it now. It was kind of like, oh, I didn't get to do this so you're not going to do it either, types, which is still bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's like there's something narcissistic about that. Like
Mm,
narcissists who have children, like very much view that child as an extension of themselves,
yeah.
not as like a separate identity. And so it's, what is it about like Pearl's mother and the things that she didn't have, or like this resentment maybe even towards Pearl because like her own husband is now paralyzed and like can't, help her,
Mhm.
and is really not like, they're not at this like equal playing field, it seems like, in this partnership. Like we hear Pearl's mother crying, and like
Yeah.
clearly she's like carrying these emotions, but in terms of the relationship between Pearl and her mother, she's not expressing these emotions to Pearl for one reason or another. Is it because there's this like, lack of love for her daughter? Is it because she
Mm,
fears her daughter? Is it because she's jealous of her daughter's youth, and like, that her life is still, she's the rest of her life to like, look forward to, and
right.
and she doesn't anymore? Like all of these things are kind of like simmering under the surface and then explode in that altercation.
Yeah. All I can think about is Jeanette McCurdy's book, and her
Mm,
talking about her mom, putting all of that childhood stardom on her, and how that kind of has affected her and her life, and things that she's still even now processing after her mother has
mhm.
passed. And even not even being an actor for such a long time. Like, it's been a few years that she stopped acting after her Nickelodeon days. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's so interesting, where it comes from, the parents and them kind of just putting their thing on the child. And at
Mhm.
that point, it is really hard because you, like you said, you have to kind of think, did she even want Pearl in the first place, you know? And if so, you know, why? Because even didn't they say Pearl, she had a baby, but the baby died, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But that was like while her husband was already off at the war. So yeah, it's just so it's so interesting, and it is hard being a parent. We do not know that life, and we are not judging people's decisions
Mm-mm.
and choices because that is not our reality. But it is interesting. But we have parents, and you know, seeing just how a parent can kind of just put their trauma, put their problems on the child is very interesting to see how that
Mhm.
plays more than what we think it does in the progression, in the development of the child, which is always such an interesting thing. And I think it's so funny too, the trope of psychologists in movies and stuff, because they're always like, let's talk about your parents, let's talk, and it's always like, we're going to start at, because it always starts with the parents. And
Yep.
again, a trope thing, because that's not always the case, but it's just funny that that is what's always a thing. Let's look at your parents. How did they treat you? But they're
Mhm.
the most influential people in your life, in your
Mhm.
developmental stages, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, Brian, did you have any other questions for Jamie?
I have one for you, Nikisha.
Yes.
Uh, she has this Mia Goth has a spectacular monologue at the end,
Hmm.
and 90% of the monologue is on her. Does not cut away to the sister-in-law. It does at the beginning, but then like you hit a point in the monologue where it's just on her in a one take. I know that you're mostly and primarily a theater actress,
Hmm.
and so we don't have to get into kind of the camera and all of that. But I guess like I mean, theater more than anyone has the monologues, has the long
Yeah.
speeches where there are tons of objectives and emotions, and you're doing it there in the moment without cut. Similarly to the way that I'm assuming that Mia Goth did those in one take, did them a couple times, and they put them
Yeah.
together however they wanted to. But I guess my question for you is like, how do you even begin to tackle that amount of text and make it engaging and interesting? Because like inherently our um our attention spans are so small nowadays, and I know
Yes.
that you're in the theater to specifically see this movie, or or show. Like, I guess in today's world, how would you go about making something like that as dynamic as she made it?
Yeah, well, you know, I think and this is totally just my opinion because I don't know what the process was for doing this, but I really think it starts with the writing. And I feel like because she had a hand in writing the script, she could write something that she knew she could present in an engaging way, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So I would just start with there, but I also think that everything does go back to stage acting because, like you said, Brian, there's so many like soliloquies and things that are happening in theater that you have to just sit there and engage in it, because not like TV and movies where you can kind of cut to different, because in that moment I was waiting for the camera to cut to the
Me
sister-in-law
too, because they did it at
the
the
whole
beginning and then it
time. Yes.
stopped.
And
Yeah,
then it
totally.
stopped
Yeah,
until she was completely done, because but I think that that's genius too, because we're all just sitting there on the edge of our seats wondering, how is this sister-in-law taking this? And I think the fact that they
oh,
didn't show it
I got
kept us
goosebumps,
engaged as
Nikisha.
well.
You gave me goosebumps
Yes.
by that explanation for sure.
Yeah, but I think that that adds to it. So the writing, the fact that it didn't cut to it, and of course just Mia Goth's performance in general, when we're talking to people, and this I think it reflects more of real life, because if you are having a one-on-one conversation with the person, you can't cut to look at another thing, you know, you are engaged in what that person is saying and what they're talking about. And I think because that is a reflection of real life, it makes the audience feel like we're the ones sitting across, because oh, you're telling us all this, even though as an audience member, we know that she already did this, but she's confessing it. And it seems like she's confessing it to us individually as audience members, which I think is really cool. And again, the build of how she talks about it, the ebb and flow of things that make her emotional and the things that don't make her as emotional. She is teary-eyed at some things, but then she kind of regains herself to finish out what she needs to say. And in the writing it's good because you're imagining what she's saying, especially when she's talking about my husband left me and this is how I felt when he left me. And now as you're listening to it, you're imagining it for yourself. It gives you more work to do, which makes it more engaging because it's not flashing. They could have flashed to back when he left, and while she's
Sure,
talking, it
sure.
could have been like an overlay of that kind of thing, whatever. But it's not. It's I'm watching you do this. I'm processing what you're saying. And I'm also imagining what you're saying because you're telling me this kind of detailed story. So that's giving me extra work to do. And that's what's keeping me engaged in that. So that's a couple of things that.
Sure. Also, something that in her performance of that, it built in a way that was really engaging in terms of like, if like at first she was like struggling to get these things out, and then like not sure if she
Mhm.
should be sharing it. And at one point, I always use this analogy. It's like you're cutting wrapping paper, then all of a sudden you hit the slide, and you just like
Yeah,
nothing else matters. You're like all in it. Like it felt like
that's
that
great.
too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I have a something else we didn't talk about. I just wanted to briefly bring up before we do some Rotten Tomatoes. Um,
Mhm.
the whole audition sequence at the end, from them waiting in line, for them switching in line, to them like watching girls come out crying, to her going in and then auditioning in front of this very stoic, almost apathetic group of people sitting at the table, and then her starting to dance, and then like it felt very Napoleon Dynamite, even though she's doing a good job, and then you
Yeah.
flash to her in like this Ziegfeld, like, big production number on movies, and then her freaking out on the stage, and then everybody on the panel turning to people she's murdered during this whole movie, or and like,
Mhm.
and all of that, just like the flipping between her psychotic nature in that moment. And psychoticness is not necessarily as a negative term, just like the psychosis she's going through in those moments, and like the reality of what's happening around her, with her like heavy sobbing after that, is truly an incredible, what, like 15 minutes in this movie,
Yes.
because like you have all this build up, and then everything after it supports what happened there, and everything before it builds up to that moment. It was just crazy dynamic from a direction, acting, and just conceptual standpoint. Like, knocked it out of the park for
Yeah.
me.
Because you have to think, and I think that's also adds to the argument of her friend did get the role. Because if they hadn't have switched spots, do you think they would have just picked the sister-in-law and told everyone else to go home? We found our person. We don't need to see anybody
Oh,
else, Or would they have kept auditioning? Because then that would have changed the narrative of Pearl didn't even get to audition because her
sure.
sister-in-law was ahead of her and already got it.
Or on the even on the other flip side of that is, now Pearl is thinking, well, if I didn't switch, I would have had another moment to like actually prepare a little bit more, or like,
Mhm.
the switch affected somehow. I don't know. I'm making things up, but that's an interesting point too. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you for indulging.
Fantastic. So should be Rotten Tomatoes this?
Yes, let's
Yeah.
do
Yes, yes,
yes.
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 Let's
Yes.
do
Yeah, I gotta
Rotten.
do the dance that she does.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Ba-na-na-na. God, I hope I
Da,
get it.
da, da.
I
Yeah.
hope I get it.
That's
How
the
many
one.
how many blonde girls does he need?
Right.
Okay. Look at all the people. Okay. Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten
Stick
Tomatoes.
around to watch to the end of this YouTube video to watch Brian do the whole dance.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
was just a prequel to a chorus line. Her
That's what we
husband
really
is
want to talk
Zach.
about.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh God. Yes. Yes.
I mean, that's the
Absolutely.
70s, right? I don't know. Anyway, okay. So, what do you think Pearl has on Rotten Tomatoes as of today? We're doing this on Sunday, September 18th.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
I'm gonna say 88.
All right. Jamie?
I'm gonna say 91.
I was
Okay,
thinking that too.
before I tell you what it is, as a refresher, X has a 94% with 213 reviews.
Okay.
Okay? Um X also has an audience score of 75% with over 500 reviews. Okay?
Mm.
Pearl has a Rotten Tomato score of 86%, with only 96 reviews, and its audience score is 83% higher than X, but it
Yeah.
only has a little bit over 100 reviews versus a 500, so that might bring it down. Who knows?
Yeah.
But the critic consensus on Pearl is Pearl finds Ty West squeezing fresh gore out of the world he created with X, and once again benefiting from a brilliant Mia Goth performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Squeezing fresh gore.
Right.
That's so good.
Squeezing fresh. Yes. It's like orange juice. Squeezed
Yeah.
fresh.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Beautiful. So let's do some 4 S's.
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
All right. The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to do skulls, scares, and shakes first, rating them 1 through 10. Then we'll do suggestions. Skulls is how this movie handles mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And shakes is how much will this stay with you. And I will pass this to Jamie. Jamie, what are your numbers?
Okay, so for whoever thinks that I'm too harsh, I gave Skulls an 8.
Mark.
Mostly for that monologue at the end. It was just so incredible. For scares, sorry, this movie isn't very scary, but that's okay because I don't think that's the point. So I gave it a 2 for the few spooky parts that we do get. For shakes, I'm giving this a 9. This movie was incredible. It's a really, really solid. I mean, who can say that like a sequel? I'm sure a bunch of people will come for me, but like, sequels in horror movie franchises aren't always the best historically. This one is excellent. So
It's what?
this is excellent.
Excellent.
So it's going to stick around in my brain for a very long time.
I would just like to say that Jamie gave X a 5 for shakes. And so she's giving a 9 for Pearl. Cool.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
Nikisha, you're up next.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit higher with my score. So, Skulls, I gave it a 7. I'm gonna keep it at a 7. I think should just stay there. Scares, it's not scary, but it was unsettling, so I'm gonna give it a 5 for scares. And then shakes, I'm gonna give it an 8. It's just a beautiful film, and Mia Goth. So yes.
Sure. And just you gave X a 7, so you still like this better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
overall.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm giving this an 8. I was probably at like a 6 or a 6-ish until that final monologue and the 2-minute cry smile over the end credits. That bumped me up to an 8, no question. I'm gonna give this a 4. I'm gonna go in between the two of you for scares. Her heavy sobbing really unsettled me. I actually think that was the scare. Her screams and heavy sobbing, like, when you hear someone else sobbing or like crying or even just throwing up, like you get these like you get the feelings that like you want to do the same thing. Like I viscerally felt her through the screen. And then I'm also giving this an 8. I gave it a 7 for shakes for X, and I'm giving this an 8. It does not get an 8 if I hadn't seen X. If I saw this on my own, this is probably like a 6.
Yeah.
But X makes this a 10. An 8.
Yeah.
For me. All right. Suggestions. Jamie, what are you suggesting?
So I had a really hard time trying to think of like what I wanted to suggest, But I think, and I know that we, I feel like we just say a lot of the same suggestions, but that's okay because we've also covered some of these as well. So,
Yeah.
you can give those old episodes a listen.
Yes.
But I'm going to suggest Starry Eyes as another, film of somebody who just like wants to be famous so badly and will do anything to get there. It's more that, and then, some demonic things happening there. But still, I think it's like a pretty comparable, theme.
Yeah.
Nikisha?
I'm going to go with Carrie, which is what I was thinking the whole time I was watching this, of the mom situation
Mm,
and just the drama of and trying to get what you want. And so yeah, Carrie for me.
good
Uh,
one.
that's a good one. I am going to. I'm actually. This is a little outside the box, but I am gonna go with Do Revenge that we just watched.
Hmm.
Okay.
Um, I just think that, or you could watch Misery. I would say
Oh yeah.
Misery or Do Revenge. Misery just for like
Mm.
fame and like just wanting your things that you love and how fame can all that stuff.
Yes.
But I would also say Do Revenge for multiple reasons. One, I can't stop thinking about it.
Mm,
Two, it just like breaks down like what people at certain ages are going through in totally different situations and time zones and time periods, I should say. Also time zones, I would also agree. Um that, but also on top of that, I think that there's an aspect of it where you're taking a formula, an origin story or a teen revenge movie, and you're kind of doing something new and interesting with it. And I
mm,
think that even though I saw them both this week, so like obviously
yeah.
I see the similarities because I'm seeing them so close together. But yeah, I would say Misery or Do Revenge. Regardless, you should watch Do Revenge.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Do
I got
it.
to put it on my
Do it.
to-do list.
It's
Beautiful. Well, that wraps up our episode of Pearl. You can follow us on the TikTok and the Instagram and YouTube at Talk Horror Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. Are you getting those podcasts from Spotify? Maybe you're getting them from Google. Perhaps you're getting them from Stitcher. It doesn't matter because we're there. So go on those things. And then if you're on Apple Podcasts and you get us there, rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And
And
thank
thank
you.
you. Look,
But
I'm not a ghost anymore. You can
oh
see
yeah, that's
me.
true.
I'm
Yeah. It cleared
real.
up.
I will say that I know we're joking, but like reviewing us and rating us really does help pick up momentum for us. It helps us in terms of what's being suggested to other people. We're having a lot of fun doing this. We hope you're having a lot of fun listening or watching. Hello. But yeah, rating and
Bye.
review us super helps. Cool. Back to you, Nikisha.
Beautiful. Well, I think we should sign off with that um critics consensus because that was a great quote.
Pearl finds Ty West squeezing fresh gore out of the world he created with X, and once again benefiting from a brilliant
Why?
Mia Goth performance.
That was
Why'd you do
brilliant.
that?
That was
Oh.
absolutely brilliant.
Unhinged.
Unhinged.
Wait, one last question. Is Mia Goth now on everybody's like she's in a movie I need to see it list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, yes. I don't know about anybody else, but I would watch her do anything because
Yeah.
wow. Also, I just need to know all of her backstory, how old she is, where she went to school, what's happening, because she's brilliant.
It's like her and Jenna Ortega, I think, are both on my like, oh, I'm like keeping an eye on
Mm,
them to see whatever stuff they're gonna be in because
yeah.
they're both like really
I mean,
on fire right now.
and speaking of Starry Eyes, like Alex Esso after Starry Eyes, like definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good
Oh
stuff.
wait, one last thing. Did you peep that our fellow Kid Cudi was also he produced this as well?
No.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw his name pop up again. I was like, Kid Cudi's back.
Oh,
I enjoyed
great,
it.
great.
Oh.
I needed more crocodile attacks.
Oh, that's the monster lover in you.
Yeah,
Give me that crocodile.
yeah. I
Yes.
was like weirdly excited for her dad to be fed to the crocodile, even though I knew it wasn't gonna happen. I was pumped.
Right.
Anyway, bye.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.